what skills do you need to be an awesome contractor? Now, you don't need to be awesome straight away, of course. The most important thing about contracting is just to get started. And that's a big journey in itself. But we'll get more to that later. So, I'm going to talk about technical skills and soft skills and all sorts of things where you can be confident contractor. So let's start off then with technical skills. So obviously technical skills are very much subjective based on what role of contracting you're going to do. I mean, my specialist subject is DevOps, and as a really extreme example is if you're a plumber, then it's not very good knowing how to program in C#. You're probably in the wrong role. You ought to know about plumbing skills. And in a DevOps team, there are many skills in order to make up that team. Like the delivery lead, the QAs, the programmers, and that kind of thing. And DevOps is, in one way, a holistic thingamabobbins, and in the other way, DevOps is people what can program and what understand server infrastructure. And that's really what I'm going to focus on in this talk. But as a contractor, there's some other softer skills, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So in my role as a DevOps engineer, whatever that is, according to the recruiters, then I need to know stuff like what infrastructure looks like. Hey, that's a good start, isn't it? Amazon or Google Cloud or Azure or some of the other lesser well-known sort of cloud providers, like Linode perhaps, or where's the other one that caught fire recently? That's not a good advert for them, is it? We'll forget about them. So but as a programmer, you might want to know programming languages, and as a DevOps supporting programmers, it's very useful to understand what they program in. So my largest contract that I deal with at the moment, the contractors are there to help support the programmers, and the programmers primarily code in Java. So we need to know a little bit of Java. Of course, as a specialist build and deploy guy, which I like to label myself with, I don't know if that's a good thing, but it means I'm dealing a lot with pipelines and CI/CD and things like that. So understanding the technical skills required to handle that. So I play a lot with Jenkins, and Jenkins needs to be configured, and because we're DevOps, we want to do it in an automated manner. So we need to understand stuff like the Jenkins infrastructure as code plugin, which is quite straightforward because it just expects YAML. Why not? Everything's YAML, okay? In addition to that, though, you might want to tweak some of the plugins, and if you're playing with plugins, then you might need to know a bit of Java, or you might need to know Groovy, which is kind of Java, but not quite. And you may have heard that I won an award recently, and part of the spiel that they said during that was Python APIs. So on my team, the customer really struggled with some of the front end of Jenkins. So rather than throwing Jenkins in the bin and going for something else like GitHub Pipelines or GitHub Actions, as it's probably called, what we decided to do with the customer was to provide an interface in between GitHub and where the source is, and where the source is compiled on Jenkins, and then it's shuttled off to AWS into the cloud to be deployed. And to tie all these stuff up together, we just have this big API that's got a number of functions built into it that enables all of that integration to take place. So it integrates between GitHub and Jenkins and Slack and a bunch of other systems. And so programming is useful as part of that as a DevOps guy, as an infrastructure guy, in order to stitch those things together. So Python would come into its own in that theory. So JavaScript, maybe. What else we got up there? Objective-C. If you're supporting mobile programmers, then that might be useful. PHP and Perl. still very much alive. Ruby a little bit more alive, and if you're using Ansible, which is another infrastructure deployment type tool, then that's also written in Python, so that can have some crossover there. But if you're using Puppet, that's written in Ruby, so there's a bit of crossover there. So knowing a programming language is quite important, I suppose. And then the flip side of all these technical skills is the soft skills. As a consultant, you're expected to be able to communicate with people, and communication is a two-way street. So you need to be able to invite questions and propose answers, or at least find out what the answers are. I am an expert in DevOps, but that doesn't mean I know absolutely everything off the top of my head straight away about every single system. Someone approached me this morning about Argos CI. Argos? See, I don't even know how to say it. That's how little I know about it. I know it's a CI/CD system. The principles are going to be the same. It probably has config in YAML, and I could probably muddle through. But I wouldn't say I'm an expert in that particular system, but I understand fundamentals. And so it means I can talk to the customer and at least describe to them how stuff is happening and what information I need from them, so that we can deliver a solution as best we can in order to fix their problem. And that's the second thing, problem solving. And then time management is also a thing where we've only got a certain amount of time and a lot of things to do. And time management really isn't managing time. It's about ordering what order you do stuff in. When does it need to be done by, and doing it in the right order so that everybody's happy. So let's break down into a little bit more detail on the technical skills. So I probably waffled a lot already, but I've already mentioned that Python is quite an important skill, certainly in what I see as being able to do an API, connect all those things together. Python, of course, is also used quite heavily within language models and machine learning and all that sort of thing. So if you're supporting anything to do with data warehousing or artificial intelligence, then there's going to be a massive crossover into Python as well. Golang also kind of pops up every now and again, because it can create a single binary, which is very useful if you're building servers and stuff and you don't want to worry about a whole bunch of dependencies. Then we can use Golang to do that. Very useful for individual tools. Other than that, it's probably whatever the programmers that you're supporting are using. Java, Ruby, could be Ruby, maybe, could be PHP, maybe, and therefore you can speak their language when they're trying to debug their application. I deployed something and it worked on my machine, but that doesn't always help them if you're not that au fait with the language. Of course, infrastructure, we can't go very far in infrastructure without talking about the wonderful operating system, the thing that's actually going to allow the server to talk out and receive requests. Or should I say receive requests and talk out? Hey, it's all a jumbled mess, isn't it? It's the cloud. And so operating systems and platforms are important for a DevOps guy to understand, particularly if you're looking after servers and building images and AMIs and operating systems. Now, most of mine is simplified. I like things simple. So we're either using Ubuntu or CentOS stroke Red Hat. And I suppose Ubuntu stroke Debian. So it's probably going to be in that kind of area. There are lots of other operating systems, but I don't tend to see a lot of those on web servers. Then there's the Microsoft stuff, which if you're in Azure, you're probably got or going to get a lot of exposure to. The things like Active Directory. It's not strictly an operating system, but it sits on Windows. And going back to Windows, we're talking about ASP and .NET and things like that. If developers are creating products using that language. What else might you need? Well, there's always a database somewhere. There's data everywhere. The primary purpose of a piece of code is to take some data in, do something to it, and spit some data out again. Now that might be as simple as you log into a screen, it asks you for your username and password, and it gives back a token. That's data in and data out. Then once you've got that token, you can then talk to something else. And that something else is usually in a database. Database is going to be containing the data that the user might want to view. A simple example would be that you're looking at email. So you've logged into email, and the data in this case is all of your emails and all of the attachments. And then that's a completely separate system to if you're working within the company's CRM system, the customer relationship management, where it's got all of the customer names and addresses and all the interactions and all of the statuses around that. Hey, talking of statuses, maybe we're talking about Jira. Jira needs all that ticket information in a database. And so understanding what the database does, how to make it faster. Now, I'm not saying you're a replacement necessarily for a DBA, but there are DBAs on some teams. And so you can focus in on the database skills and be a top flight expert on that. I'm an expert in build and deploy in Jenkins and things. Other people in my team are more expertise around Mongo and MySQL and Postgres, Vertica, all sorts of other database systems that exist out there. Some of them for simple caching, like Mongo, and some of them for big data warehouse and column-based data, if you know what that means, like Vertica. So understanding what a database is, what it does, how to make it faster. Disk I/O is usually the bigger one, and then scaling up, because I most often get asked about how do I scale stuff. I want to scale stuff around making my app being able to serve more people, and one of the bottlenecks can often be the database. But let's move on to the soft skills. There's going to be lots of these. So communication skills, as I've already said, you need to have a certain level of confidence in order to talk to somebody. And I know that public speaking is a scary thing for a lot of people. But what about a one-to-one conversation? I'm having a conversation now, although very one-sided from my point of view, I'll give you that. But it's a one-to-one conversation. It's me talking to you. And there might be some other people listening as well, but that doesn't matter. I'm talking to you, okay? And if you had questions, you'd be able to talk back to me and to be able to understand and hold a conversation and be able to provide value to the customer. And one of those ways of communication skills, breaking it down, is understanding who your audience is, who your customer is, what their technical ability is. So quite often when I'm speaking to somebody, I will ask them, what is your background? Did you do university? Have you been a programmer? Just so that I can understand what level to pitch my responses at, so that I don't teach them to suck eggs, and I don't want to overwhelm them. I want to hit that middle ground, which can be a bit tricky. Obviously, the more you talk to somebody, the easier that gets. And problem-solving abilities. So as an engineer, strange term, I guess, because I don't hit any metal or anything. Very old school industrial engineer, but now we're in software engineering. And part of why we want to be employed by the customers so that we can solve problems, and they want us to solve their problems. So that's great. We both get something out of it. And problem solving ability is very important. It's having a methodical way of looking at what happened, what are the possibilities that created that event to occur, where can I look for evidence to support a hypothesis of what occurred, and then how can I come up with a solution to, if not prevent that from happening again, at least alerting to us that it's about to happen, giving us a warning sign or something, or mitigating it in some way by having a workaround or something like that. And then mix that in with your communication skills, and you can come up with a report and a recommendation. And that helps you give value to the customer, because then they've got a written record of that thingamabobs, right? But also time management and organization. Now, some of us get the pleasure of using Jira. That's a Kanban system. What's a Kanban system? It's a to-do list with columns on it. And that helps manage the time and the order of which things are done. You know, things are more important than others, and you'll sometimes have to decide what's more important to spend your time on right now. I'm glad you've spending the time to listen to me right now. That's a good thing to do. And time management and organization is just about having the order in the correct way so that you can deliver solutions and problems to your customers at the appropriate time. If something's really important, like a priority one ticket is some phrase I've heard in the past, then that probably wants to get all of your attention straight away. If you've got thousands of developers that can't do any work today because the CI/CD system is playing up, then that's going to take your attention straight away. And that's a bit easy. When it's harder is when you've got sort of two things vying for your attention, and it's like, which one do I do first? I don't know. Which one's more important to the customer? I don't know. Hey, communication skills, maybe let's ask the customer. They can help guide that decision. And then once you've got that, you can organize your time accordingly. And of course, all of this comes down to being flexible and adaptable. And when in IT, we're always learning the new thing, the new skills, the new tech, the new tools, and being able to adapt and flex to what's going on. The example I gave just now is priority one coming in. Drop everything, focus on that, and being able to task switch. And task switch is hard. It can take some time. So you don't want to task switch too often. There's a way of being too flexible and too adaptable, because then you'll never get anything done if you're just bopping about and jumping from one thing to the other. But having that flexibility in your approach, sometimes you've used a certain set of tools to fix a specific problem, but the customer doesn't allow you to use one of those tools. So you need to be a bit inventive around that and adapt to the new tools so that solves the same problem for the customer, but in the way that they want it solved for. And that's where being a contractor gives you that breadth of experience, because customers use different tool sets, and therefore it's more exciting for us if you like learning in order to pick up what those tool sets are. And then it's also exciting for your potential customers because you've got more exposure to more tool sets. Anyways, so the journey to being a contractor starts with a single step. And if you're up for it, I'd like you to go off to my quiz, and it'll tell you the first step is to fill in the quiz. That'll then tell you how many other steps there are that you need to go through before you're ready, if you like, to be a contractor, and how we can support you on that journey. As always, if there's any questions, stick them in the comments below and we'll get back to them. Thanks very much for your time today, and I will see you on the next one.